One of the big shifts that's happening, I don't think it's quite complete. I think by the time of the next election, it will have been completed, is the move away from the mainstream media to the point where our space becomes the dominant space for actually where these conversations are happening. It's starting to happen. Donald Trump has been more in the lead, I would say, in terms of doing podcasts and doing stuff like this. Kamala's done a couple. I know for a fact that she was in negotiations with Joe Rogan about going on her show. We learned today that she's not going. Why do you think that is?
The first interview she did, where she said, okay, I'll sit down and it's not going to be a softball interview from somebody from MSNBC like Stephanie Ruhle, I believe is 20 minutes, 25 minutes, something like that. The next one was in that universe too. So you have presumably a lead up, some questions, some niceties, and you're probably talking about 15 minutes of actual substance. Joe Rogan does 2 hours, 2.5 hours. Donald Trump to do 4.5, right? I mean, is it going to be substantive? Is it going to be making sense the whole time? Absolutely not. Is it going to be funny? Absolutely. I cannot imagine what she would be like over a 45-minute period, an hour period, an hour and a half. And especially if somebody who is not on one side or the other and is going to ask kind of curious questions and probing questions. And Joe Rogan is not somebody who's going to, from watching him over the years, is going to allow a bunch of bluster and nonsense to like pretend it's an answer. And she gets away with that. I mean, Anderson Cooper, I don't hate Anderson Cooper. There were a couple of answers about the economy that I mean, word salad is being generous. I had no idea what she was talking about. And she loops back and they say, like, what are you going to do on taxes? And she's, I grew up in a middle-class family. And it's like, oh, here we go. That is the indicator that everything that's going to come after is absolute fluff. When you're sitting in front of somebody for 2 hours who is not a professional journalist, who just wants to know the answer to questions, right? Is not trying to please a constituency, I think was the biggest media deal in the past decade, maybe probably in history, with that single deal for Spotify. He doesn't need you. He doesn't need your money. He doesn't express fealty to any party. And you think he's just going to let you get away with this stuff? It will be interesting to see what he does with Trump. I don't think he's going to take it easy on Trump.
Well, we'll find out by the time this interview comes out. But it's interesting. I have 2 things to say. I think Joe is great. And one of the things I would say is he's one of the most open-minded people I've ever met.
Yes.
But he will push back if you talk about something that he knows about and he doesn't agree.
Correct.
And then he's like a pit bull and he will not let you get away with any bullshit. But I actually think he probably would have been very generous to her, letting her set her views out and whatever. And then if she said something dumb, then he would push back.
Yeah.
But
it's not Piers Morgan. In all respect to Piers Morgan, but Piers Morgan, you come on to have a fist fight, right? Yeah. And that's what you expect. And he creates the guests that way and the combinations that way. Whereas Rogan's show, you're right. I mean, I've seen him with people I know he disagrees with. You can kind of sense it, but there's a generosity of spirit there and he allows people to actually respond. So I actually think it would be a good venue for her. And at this point, with the polls trending in the wrong direction for her, she has nothing to lose.
Well, that's what I thought. But then, and this is the other point I was going to make, because I listened to you and you're a friend and you're smart. And I go, oh. And then I sort of like look down on the situation and I go, here's a guy who's saying what many people believe, which is that one of the 2 candidates for president who has a good chance of winning, it may not be, it may not be 50%, even maybe 40%. That's pretty good chance of winning.
Yeah.
Can't hold a conversation for 2 hours.
Yeah.
About her views about the direction of the country she wants to lead. What the fuck is that? How is that possible?
Well, I mean, I would add a little addendum to that is how is it possible, especially considering she's been the vice president for 4 years. And what you see with her is depending on what the subject is, she is the all-powerful vice president. There's never been a vice president more. She says, we did this. I did this. I didn't do that as vice president. I didn't ban fracking as vice president. We don't have that power, but no. But then when she's asked a question in the debate about Afghanistan, she's like, well, President Biden's policy, it's like she's running away from this all the time. She has no record to speak of, right? But her record in the Senate, I mean, she's a cipher in the Senate too. And, as vice president, you would imagine she would have some accomplishments, number one. And number two, have some fluency with government, some fluency with how to deal with these issues when you're being pressed on them. When she's asked about the economy, look, I think that there's something that is both her and the advice she's getting. I think there was a concerted effort to do two things. It happened with Joe Biden. They got used to this as a strategy, which they literally called Operation Bubble Wrap. Keep Joe Biden in the basement. Don't let him out. He's going to embarrass himself. They just continued that with her for different reasons. She's not, non compos mentis. She's just not very bright, and she's very bad at this. So they keep her under wraps and make sure she doesn't give you an answer on anything. The American people aren't that stupid. They start noticing when you say nothing and when you say both things.
Do you think it was a mistake for her not to go on Rogan?
I'm of two minds about that, but I think in the end, yeah, probably. Because at this point, if these polls are right, look, we could be made to look foolish because this happens. These are within the margin of error. There's polling biases, et cetera. Trump underpolls a lot. If it turns out that she loses this by the margin that I suspect she might, you have to pull out all the stops. You have to pull out literally every stop at the end. And the riskiest thing in hockey, you pull the goalie. The net is open, but you get one more player in but it's 90% of the time that puck goes in. But you need that little extra boost, and they are panicking. This is from all the reporting. Look at Politico. Look at the people at Semaphore, Ben Smith stuff. That the people within the Harris camp are panicking right now. And what do you do when you panic? Sit where you are? No, you come out and you've ruined it. Go out again. And I think the best environment for her, I was just realizing this now, is probably Joe Rogan. Because I think that one of you said this, and I think you're right, that Joe would be nice to her.
He would be.
And he's like a pleasant guy. He's not a guy that ambushes you. No. He doesn't do that kind of interview. And I think it actually might benefit her in putting her at ease and just having a conversation for a couple hours. I guarantee you she can have a normal conversation over dinner or over lunch or something.
Can she?
I have no idea. She hasn't proven it to us yet, but if she
must
could.
be able to.
So, if she can be...
why are you looking at me like that? See, this is the thing that, we have these conversations in, the podcast and media space. Yeah. We're like, she can't have it. Come on.
I've never met anyone who couldn't have at least a basic dinner party conversation. Yeah. She went to law school. She's not a dummy. I don't think she's dumb. I don't think she's that. I just don't think she's sharp in a political way.
She can have a conversation for 2 hours. It just doesn't seem to be about politics or the economics.
Rogan loves fucking talking about UFOs. Yeah. He can get her on a million things.
He wouldn't though.
That'd be great though if it blew up her campaign because she went on and was 9/11 was an inside job.
Yeah. She just slipped out.
She's fuck, I forgot.
While they're having a joint and he's like, didn't you used to lock people up for having these?